Welcome to episode 192 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Brandon Mancine. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today by Brandon Mancine. Brandon, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Technology always making things more difficult than they should, even though it's supposed to make our life simpler. But we made it through, and we're here. So I appreciate you, navigating through that. Not always easy.
We're 1,200 miles apart, and we're able to connect. It does bring its own challenges, but it helps in its own way.
How did you do that calculation? Do you just know that off the top of your head, the distance from Texas to Toronto?
Man, if that was within 10%, I'm going to go play the lottery, and I never do that. So
You sold me. I just assumed it was right. You said it with such confidence. Like, well, I guess this guy must know what do I know to say that differently? It's also in miles, and I have no idea.
I think we've already got your listeners Googling San Antonio to Toronto.
There you go. I hope some people do. I spent some time in Austin. I've been a couple times, and it's a phenomenal place. I know that that's not San Antonio, but the few times that I've been to,
it kind of is, man.
It's an awesome place.
They're becoming a metro area like Dallas, Fort Worth. DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Yeah, very cool.
Sure.
Now also taking on some of like the maybe the hippie vibes or whatever new word people would use to describe that from California, but like probably some sort of balance is there. It's all good.
Yeah. There's if those in Texas already know this, but there's the saying of "Don't California my Texas," and that it was said a lot around Austin, but then as you move further out, there's a beautiful town out in West Texas called Marfa. It's a little artist community out there, but what they always say is "Don't Austin my Marfa." And yeah, San Antonio is they were saying "Don't San Antonio" or "Don't Austin my San Antonio," because the motto in Austin is "Keep Austin weird." The motto I heard when I first moved down here in 2011 was "Keep San Antonio metal." There's a strong metal band presence in San Antonio.
And where were you living before you moved to San Antonio?
Right before San Antonio was Indianapolis. What brought me to San Antonio was working in Lifetime Fitness. I started with them in Fairfax County, Virginia, so just outside of DC in 2003. Moved up in the training department, and I became one of the guys they would move around to fix personal training departments. And met my wife in DC. We both lived there for about 10 years. So when they started doing that, she decided to move with me. That was before we were married. Saying my wife decided to move with me sounds weird. So that was before we married. And then we got married, actually in Indy. And then, but we didn't really, it's a beautiful city, but not where I want to live. I told Lifetime I'd like to go somewhere else. Again, we both lived in DC for 10 years, just a very diverse, rich culture there. Like there is always something to do and, that can fit any mood you're in. So we, wanted something more along the lines of that. And Lifetime was like, we got some spots for you in Texas. And her family lives in Houston. So I was like, all right. She grew up in Houston in the 90s. I told her, hey, they said they got spots in Texas. And her exact words were anywhere except San Antonio. Because San Antonio in the 90s was not what it is today, or even in, the early 2010s. So, but we came down for a trip, drove around a little bit and she was like, yeah, this city's come up quite a bit. So yeah, that's how I ended up here. And then I separated from Lifetime, went out on my own in 2013 or 2014, somewhere in there. I don't know, man. The years melt together since having kids. I can't even remember what life was like before that, but yeah.
I can imagine. Time just flies, and especially when you're just building something, you're building a business, you're working on your own, you're doing a lot of things, and in the line of work that we're in, like personal life and business is kind of all the same. Like you don't just, I don't, maybe you're more organized than I am, that you have like work hours and you kind of like shut it down at, XYZ time. But it's hard to just like disconnect that. Yeah.
We talked a bit before, you're getting ready to get married, build a family and all that stuff. And you by default are going to get more organized, but it's not compartmentalized, right? You can't be, I mean, I guess you can be, a health and fitness professional and then out drinking your face off doing, God knows what on the weekends, but eventually that'll, someone's going to find you out, man. And that just doesn't bode well for, promoting health. Right. So,
Right.
While it is, I feel like in our industry, it is harder or less beneficial. I'm not certain. We're kind of shooting from the hip here because it's an interesting concept to talk about, but it's not as easy, nor is it as right to compartmentalize your life. In another industry, you can be all about, again, shooting from the hip here, construction and building buildings and building these beautiful modern buildings, but then want to live in a log cabin. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're about health and fitness, if you're coaching health and fitness, you sure as shit better be living fucking health and fitness, otherwise who the hell is going to want to work with you,
Right. And how effective would you be at even doing that? I think it's because
Yeah.
we really, we like to talk about the nuts and bolts and science things of reps and sets and macros, and we try and put numbers on things, but really what we're trying to do is influence or help people change their own behavior. And that's not really black and white versus something like accounting. There's I'm sure there's some gray area, but effectively, it's black and white. This is the thing. If you're any type of office job, there's a way to do it. There's a thing that you do, and that's it. And in fitness, it's we have these general principles, but then how to actually implement that in someone's life is there's kind of a lot of options there.
Well, Danny, it's interesting. You talked about science and what is the best plan. And years ago, there was this Freakonomics. Did you ever read that book?
No.
And great book. They just take things and break them down to the ridiculous. What is along the lines of the concept of atomic habits? What is the little things you can do to make a big difference? Well, those guys had a podcast called the Freakonomics Podcast. I don't know if it's still on, but probably 10 to 15 years ago somewhere, my brother sent me one who the title was, "What is the best exercise?" Right? He's like, "You got to listen to this." And I texted back, and it's a bullshit question. Because what is the best exercise? ... Right?
Yeah,
for what?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You get it. And I think most of your listeners probably get that. And he said, just listen. They talk about that from the jump. So I did. And they went in and again, breaking down to the ridiculous, extending that question, making it, defining it and saying okay, so what is the best exercise then for, I think they went into what now people refer to as functional lifespan. So living a long, healthy, vibrant life, living as long as you can, but, in those twilight years, not relying on someone else to wipe your ass. Not only that, but being able to contribute to society until your dying breath, right? Or, at least within days of it. So, then they said, well, okay, the best exercise, number one, is the one that you'll do, right? Because it has to, you have to have, you have to have buy-in, right? And then number two was squats. So expanding on those two, you can't just go do squats, right? They said it's squats because there's few other exercises, maybe the deadlift, that build total body strength. And, and then to the buy-in thing, to the one that you'll do, this is why when I sit down with somebody and I'm consulting with them, they're going to potentially be a client, and we talk about goals. I told them there has to be 3 categories of goal that you have to fulfill if this is going to be a lifelong pursuit for you, if you're going to really truly get the most out of this. The first one, which everybody by default usually gets, is the aesthetic. I want this person's arms, this person's legs, this person's abs, or even if it's, I want to get to this weight, even if that's not what they're truly going to get, right? You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
It's an aesthetic minded goal, but you're going to be the last one that's going to see that. Right? Because you see your body all day, you being the client. They see their body all day, every day. the people that are going to see that first are the people they see the least frequently. They see maybe every 1 or 2 weeks because they don't see them for a week or two. So that change is kind of sudden to them. They're like, wow, you're looking different, looking better, looking lean. The next people that are going to see that are the people you see every day, every other day. But then you are not going to see it until one day, 2, 3 weeks later, you're getting out of the shower and you're like, whoa. Or you try on the pair of pants and you're like, that's wow, right? But so it's kind of, that can't be the only goal. It's not, you're not going to see it. It's not going to keep you motivated. Even when you do hear those words of affirmation from others, they know I'm working on it. They're going to, all the bullshit people tell themselves. They're just saying that to keep them motivated, right? So the first one is that aesthetical. The other one, which is still kind of, it's far off, but it's important to have. I call it the lifetime or legacy goal. What type of old person do you want to be? For me, I'm 47. My son is 5. My daughter's 3. When they're around 20, I'm going to be in my mid to late 60s. So I want to go on some sort of adventure trip of their choosing. If I'm going to do that, I need to be working on my health and fitness and capabilities now. Right. I can't wait till then. Again, that's still kind of removed. It's a great idea to keep in mind, especially, when they're running crazy around the house and Dad, will you come play with me? And I'm like, yeah, let's do this, right? It helps you keep that relationship going.
Right.
But then the one that connects those two is what I call the empowering goal. And that's in the next 3 to 12 months, what sport activity do you want to do, either get better at, start, or what is something that you can feel yourself getting better at week by week? And a prime example I give of that, years ago, I had this client, who, an older lady, she was a widow. Her husband had passed away 10 years prior, and they always did ballroom dancing competitions. And she stopped after he passed. And, so for some reason, she was like, I want to do that again. And she went to a class and she was uncoordinated, and they used to win, right? They would win these competitions, and she felt uncoordinated. So she came in and started asking about trainers and got to me. And I was like, yeah, of course we can do that. And just took her through basic for it, a near 70-year-old woman, basic strength and conditioning, right? Which she was skeptical of. I think most people, because of their understanding of what that truly is, would probably be skeptical. But after the first week, she was like, I feel more capable in the class, right? And there wasn't big strength, like there wasn't a lot of muscle development, but there was neuromuscular development, right? The brain more efficiently talking to the body. So that's the power of that empowering goal. So have the aesthetic, have the lifetime or legacy goal, and then what in the next 3 to 12 months are you going to just be the best you can possibly be at, and put that as the focus. That's going to connect those two and make it a lifestyle for you.
I like that concept a lot, and for 2 reasons. One, I think this empowering goal idea is very tangible and it's positive, whereas the aesthetic side of the goal seems to most often be phrased in the negative, where like just the language that we use is, I want to lose 10 pounds. I don't like the way my stomach looks, so I want to change that. And that's like, it's framed with negative language. And that's always like, it's hard to beat yourself up about that. But then at the same time, like you once you have some progress, you say that you want to get a 6-pack. And then you get like kind of close and you're like, I don't actually really care about getting a 6-pack. And so you're still like chasing this goal, but not really. And then there's like this disconnect between like what you say that you want and then what you actually want and what you're doing in between there. But the performance side of it, or the empowering side of it, is like positive. You're chasing something and you can very quickly see yourself getting better at something. Now, one other aspect of this. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to further that a little bit. How many people do you know, this is just for your listeners, and just think, that are always talking about, I need to lose. Again, words have meaning, words have power. You're constantly telling yourself, I need to lose, right? And you'll see, social media is a perfect example. You'll see people talk about, I live in a caloric deficit. Bullshit.
Yeah.
factually cannot live in a caloric deficit. So come on. But yeah, it's about increasing your abilities, and the aesthetic becomes a side effect.
Yes, 100%. It's like, it's the thing that gets you in the door, but it's not the thing that keeps you there most of the time,
Yeah.
right? The empowering thing is the piece that gets you there. Now, for people who don't have something like a ballroom dance, something that they want to get back into, or maybe they're not into sports, I would say that we can push people to like pick something, but not everyone has to pick a hobby. So would you classify just straight up workout performance in that same thing? Like, I just want my squat to be heavier. I squat, 50 pounds and I want to squat 150 pounds. Like, would that still satisfy the same thing for you there?
Absolutely. I mean, CrossFit is a prime example of that. It's one of the reasons CrossFit is so successful in spreading its culture, right? Is that it has gamified the idea of working out. Of course, that can, it has a dark side to it where somebody hits a PR and they're like, well, I want another PR 5 minutes later. Mm-hmm. That's not how that intelligently works. So,
right.
I think, 100%.
It's one of those things too that I think that it's hard for people to, if you're new to the gym, you don't really understand what that feeling is like. I assume anyone listening to this, like, you're not brand new to the gym. You've at least been going a little bit. And so once you start to see that progress, it gets like exciting. You get really excited to see that. But if you're just like a non-gym person, nobody cares that you hit a 5-pound PR or a 10-pound PR on whatever. Like, it's not relevant to anyone else. But telling someone that you were able to go rock climbing and you were better at that, or you were able to do some sort of hike that you previously weren't able to do, or it can be even smaller tasks, like you were just able to travel and feel good, or your back doesn't hurt from sitting down at your desk all day.
Yeah.
Like, these little things, like, those are smaller goals maybe, but like equally as important and probably more impactful in your actual day-to-day life.
Yeah. And one of the things, I forget, it was Ripto who first said it, like, it just makes you harder to kill, right? From every point of view, like, more resistant to disease. One of the things that's getting shared around social media now is that one of the best predictors for surviving cancer treatment is how much muscle mass do you have going into that treatment, right? I've heard it referred to as like your savings account, your health savings account for your actual health, not a financial health savings account. And you're aware of my situation. I've kind of proved it, that it strengthens bone density, ligament and tendon tensile strength. These are all things that come along with it. When people say, oh, I gained 5 pounds of muscle, you gain 5 pounds by gaining muscle, but some of that is bone density and increased, tendon capacity. And there's a lot to that.
Right. And again, this isn't one of those things where I've said this hundreds of times before, and I'm not the only person to say this, but like, having more muscle and being more healthy, it doesn't prevent one from getting cancer, getting sick, or like yourself, getting in a crazy car accident. Like, you cannot prevent those things from happening. However, God forbid something like that does happen to you. You want to be as prepared as possible and give yourself the highest likelihood of surviving and healing and coming back from it as quickly and as efficiently and as well as possible. And that's really the piece that, like, you won't know that you need it until you need it, and then it's too late to like build it up, kind of thing. So given all that, can you tell your story about your accident? Because I want to talk with this anyways, but perfect segue.
I think important distinction to draw there. Yeah, it doesn't it doesn't prevent, right? People a lot of times will talk about injury prevention. Again, words have power. I'm really big on being intentional with the words you use. So yeah, it's not going to prevent injury regardless of the sport you're in, right? Strength and conditioning helps minimize your chance of injury. For my specific instance, and to show, like, minimize the impact that injuries can have on your life. November of 2017. So we're coming up on 7 years now. November 19th, I was coaching in a couple CrossFit boxes downtown. hit some heavy singles, worked up to 405, and then did a power Elizabeth. Had just turned 40 years old 3 months prior, and was keeping up with and outperforming some of the 20-year-olds in the gym. So I was arguably in the best shape of my life. The next day, was loading my dog into the back of my Jeep. I used to collect older Jeeps, again, before kids. And an intoxicated driver came along, hit me, pinned me between the front of his truck and the back of my Jeep, crushed my right leg. So severe crush syndrome to all the muscles, compartment syndrome, torn MCL, 3 severe bone bruises, no breaks. And I still have the rear bumper from that Jeep in my garage with my leg print in it. Spent a week in ICU, and one of the nurses in the ICU was a member at one of the boxes that I coached at. And so he was, as CrossFitters will do, this is why you guys need to come in. This is what, CrossFit can do for you. Strength and conditioning can do for you, right? And so that word got around. And the doctor in charge came in, and we talk about strength and the principles of strength and conditioning. And I think we were talking about this before we hit recording, but how it overlays to other, everything else in your life, but intentionally building strength when you're up against resistance. So the doctor came in and she said, look, Mr. Mancini, I understand, I need you to understand that because of your exercise history, you have fared this accident better than most would. There is a percentage of the population that would have taken their leg. Most people would have had a break. You had 3 severe bone bruises, so no breaks. But I need you to understand your days of exercise the way you knew them are behind you. And I understand she had good intention in that, trying to help me. But I knew in that moment I needed to take my stance of what I was going to be moving forward. And so I asked her, I said, who is in charge of my healthcare? The look on her face let me know she thought I was asking where's the man in charge. And understandably, she's fine to feel that way. It's not easy to become a doctor. She said, I'm in charge of your healthcare. Are you okay with that? I said, no, you're a consultant. I'm in charge of my healthcare. I appreciate your opinion. I will squat 405 again. And she rolled her eyes, whatever, is miscommunication we worked through. But it took me 16 months to get back to 405. Do I think I could have gone out after it a little bit less aggressively? Sure, but I had something to prove, and to myself more than anyone else. But I think that is important. Taking ownership, again, use these resources. Look to science and nutrition, exercise and nutrition sciences as resources. But the shit that works for getting strong and healthy has worked for eons. And some of it, you don't need science to prove.
100% agreed. And obviously there's a lot to say there. So I'll start with the doctor telling you that, like, hey, those days of high performance, we'll call it, are past you. And I don't know if you'll know the answer to this question, but is there something like legally or medically that they're required to kind of like set that expectation? Because it sounds like to me, if you tell people that, the average person is going to be like, well, doc said so. So, woe is me. I'm never going to walk again, squat again, do XYZ again. Versus doc comes in and says, hey, like, this is going to be tough, but like, we have a plan. We're going to get you through this. Like, we're going to get you doing all the things again. That might plant that positive seed in your head. And you might not actually get there based on whatever happened, but like, at least thinking you can is going to make you work harder and keep your hopes up for it. So I don't know what the answer is there. And maybe there is a medical or legal reason for that, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or know the answer to that question.
I think she was well-intended. So we can go into this a bit. I am skeptical of, I think it's good to be healthy to be a skeptic in most things. I'll be honest, with, anytime somebody has DR before their name, I'm going to be more skeptical. I'll go into why that is in a bit later, but I think she was well-intended. I think she, again, what people think about CrossFit and CrossFitters. And we haven't talked about it. I don't know where your head is with it. What I believe is if social media is, or if social media was in the 70s and 80s what it is now, people would be making fun of bodybuilders relentlessly, because I've seen stupid shit done in the name of bodybuilding for people. Again, what is a CrossFitter? Is it somebody who's in the games, right? Or is it somebody who, has never worked out before in their life and joined a CrossFit gym, whether that gym has paid their affiliation fee or not, and they're just touted CrossFit, right? It's such a,
Right.
So, it's all, I think she was well intended in trying to guide someone who is in a vulnerable position in their life, to make some good decisions. I disagreed with her opinion, and I just needed that, again, for my sake more than anyone, to let it be known, right? My wife was sitting right next to me in that situation, so it was, I'm pretty sure she knew how I was going to respond.
That's very fair. Very fair.
Yeah. So, I don't know. And, I don't care.
I think the other side of this too is, if we just think about averages, like we think about the average person, you are not the average person in anything like that type of situation. So most of the people that doctor would see in some sort of accident like that are not going to do that again, because they don't have the muscle mass. They don't know about training. They don't train. They're not physically fit. They don't pay attention to their diet. Like, the average person is so far behind what we consider a fit person. Never mind like an elite fit person, just like a regular gym goer. Like, the average person can do 0 push-ups and 0 pull-ups, not like a little bit. It's 0. And so, so the average person is actually for sure not going to get back to their past performance from that accident, not because they can't, just because they won't do the thing. So speaking on averages, like, I understand how, that would be the assumption, but like, right. Obviously you did it. So
would she have said, think about the concept of going the other way. If the average person had experienced that accident, and they had broken leg or lost their leg, would she have said, hey, if you had lived your life cultivating physical strength and conditioning, you'd still have your leg. Your leg wouldn't be broken, right? So, again, who knows? But
that would also
it
be
is
a
what it
horrible
is.
thing to say. Yeah.
It would. So, again, man, I think she was probably well intended, but I also believe that most doctors misunderstand what exercise is, especially strength training.
For sure. And there's, again, it's not everyone, we're painting with a broad brush here, but there is like a belittlement of, like, in the hierarchy of, we'll call it health professionals, starting from someone who is a doctor, down a notch to like a dentist, down a notch to a chiropractor, to a physiotherapist, to a whatever, and like a personal trainer, strength coach is like, bottom of the barrel in the totem pole there. But I would say arguably we have like more opportunity for positive effect in a widespread manner. But the doctor's gonna be like, oh, what do you know? You lift weights, and it, like, that's not science. Like, that's not medicine.
So I can point to another specific action, or specific instance. My mom, retired in, 2021. She still lives I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. She's lived up there. I'm obviously in Texas now. My brother's in North Carolina. My sister is in Ohio. And she worked in advertising sales for 25 years. Was phenomenal at her job. 85% of her business came from restaurants. So local restaurants. She would run their ad campaign, blow it up. And so their business would, like, again, best of what she did. They would see very substantial increases in their business. So these local restaurants loved her. So she would, if I, ran your ad campaign and increased your business enough where you're like booming and you can grow and you can maybe open another location, you're probably going to, at least give me a discount whenever I come to do business with you. Right. But there were a lot of restaurants that were feeding her for free. Um, and listen, I'm going to go through and say some things here that she has told me. I want you to share this story because it's improved her life leaps and bounds. And she wants the clear picture of painted of where she came from and the change she went through. So she was a functional alcoholic during those years as well. And in 2021, she retired, and then her mom, 3 weeks later, passed away. And now her mom, my grandmother, worked with a personal trainer into her 80s. Her personal trainer was in his 60s. She worked with Meals on Wheels into her 80s as well. So in her late 80s. So delivering food to people who are 20 years younger than her that are not capable to get out and get food on their own, right? When she went into the assisted living, this is a true story. I told this in her eulogy. She burned out the motor on the lift assist chair because she thought it was intended to help her do squats. There was no stopping this woman, right? She was, whenever we went to dinner at her house when we were growing up, it was always chicken and veggies, right? Is just lived health and well-being. So mom retired. She passed away. My grandmother passed away. And I was on the phone with my mom, and there's, basically her friends, her circle of friends who didn't live well, didn't exercise, didn't eat well, didn't exercise, and were functional alcoholics as well. On the phone with her shortly after that, she was like, what do I do now? And I said, well, this is, we're just, again, my son is now 5, my daughter's 3. I said, hey, why don't you come live with us? Be professional grandma. I will show you how to set up the houses as rentals. So you have some income. Come on down. She said, okay. First, we were going to try it for a couple of weeks. Ended up, we said, hey, let's try this for 2 months. First 30 days she lived with us, she lost 30 pounds. Over the first 2 months of the trial period, she lost 48 pounds.
Wow.
We figured out in that 25 years of her career, less than 500 of the meals that she had were home cooked. And that was when she was able to go to my grandmother's house, right? So, you understand how impactful that is. So she went from that to eating only the home cooked meals my wife makes, had her walking every day and not terribly long walks. And we have a gym at the house, basic strength, right? 30 pounds in 30 days, 48 pounds over the first 60 days. So she's like, of course, she's like, I'm in. She's like, I got to go back home, set stuff up, close everything out. She goes back to check out with her doctor, who'd been her doctor for more than 30 years. And his exact words were, Kathy, if I hadn't seen this with my own 2 eyes, I would have thought it were impossible. When she told me that, I said, does that sound like someone you should take health, fitness, and nutrition advice from? Again, doctors have their place. I believe most of them are well-intentioned, but I don't think that's where we should be looking to promote ownership of one's health.
I completely agree with that. And it's an amazing story because it really goes to show how small changes can make gigantic impacts. And it's largely just with the environment. And there were no secret sauces. You weren't feeding her some crazy special diet or that she was doing some, extreme exercise or anything like that. It's like, okay, we get off the restaurant food and we get onto some home cooked food. Instead of not walking, we walk a little bit. Instead of whatever, we strength train. How often was she training? 2-3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, something like that. And maybe 30 to 40 minute sessions. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, what a world of a difference. Right. And then I assume you didn't mention, but, did she stop drinking during that time as well, or control that, or
lessened it, lessened it, right?
Yeah. So gigantic impact as well.
Right. And I'm not the person to guide someone through stopping alcohol. Right. So again, exactly. Know what you are, know what you ain't. But there's some, an important distinction I want to draw up here, because the fitness industry is big on promoting lifestyle change. That's what she did. An actual fucking lifestyle change. Completely changed her environment. You said it. Completely changed her support system. Right? Completely changed her activity level. Completely changed her nutrition. And let's be honest. Most people cannot do that.
Not in that
That's
way,
why,
for sure.
Well, I'd like to tell people, let's set a clear expectation. Lifestyle evolution. What are the 1 to 2 changes you can focus on right now? And that's where, you and I and all the other fitness pros out there guide people to what are the biggest ROIs that we can work on. Back to what's the best exercise. The one you're going to do, and let's fucking make squats happen, right?
Right.
Because if we can make your exercise program enjoyable, and then I can get you doing some squats to build strength, to promote squat, hinge, push, pull, rotate, hinge. Did I say that? Lunge? I don't know. Right. Basic human movement patterns.
Right.
And build strength in those, right? It's one of the things I always tell people so they can get a concept of what strength training actually is. The only difference between yoga and strength training is external load. It's a practice of positions and patterns.
I got some people got upset at me because I said that Pilates is easy if you're generally strong, and they got upset like, "Oh, Pilates isn't easy. You don't know what it's like." I'm like, I went to one Pilates class ever. The instructor asked me how long I'd been doing Pilates for. And it's like, not because I'm so good at Pilates, I'm just like generally strong. So it transfers over to everything. And it's not that Pilates is bad or that yoga is bad. There's nothing wrong with it. They're just good for what they're good at. If you're generally strong, as in lifting weights and, normal quote unquote strength training, like that will translate better to a lot of different things in being able to like control your body. And that's really the main thing, right? You get generally strong, you can go rock climbing again, you can play golf, you can do whatever other activities you want, go hiking. You don't have to practice those things. But if you are generally strong, then you can go out and do anything you want. And then the next evolution there is a skill level. Like you're not going to get so strong that you're an expert rock climber. Like the next thing from there is you have to actually learn the technique. But if you're strong enough, like you can just kind of muscle through it to at least just do the activity for fun.
Yeah, man. GPP. It's the way to go.
It is. It's huge. Now, how much is your mom still living with you, and has she kept up all that change? All that progress?
Yeah. She as a matter of fact, she just got home a little bit ago. She's in the gym 5 or 6 days a week, completely different support system. When she goes and visits friends and family, she comes back and talks about how much she misses her gym family. So yeah, man, 100%.
Now your kids are young, but are they see you working out or see grandma working out? Are they involved in sports? And how does that now translate through the generations? Because it's, again, their environment is one that has health and fitness involved in it. And this whole concept of just like leading by example as a fitness professional for the people out there and for our clients, but also for like our family and the people in our immediate circles.
Yeah. So I think you're talking about generational health, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a great term.
To finish the story with my mom, or to update you to where it's at, she's down 70 some odd pounds at this point, because that's we're almost 3 years later. My kids, so we have the gym at the house, but we also have a gym membership at the Lifetime here, because it's good to drop them in the child center sometimes and allow us to be focused. But this weekend, I went out in the gym, and my son and daughter are always like, "Dad, can we go in the gym?" And if I'm working out, I may have to modify some things if they're there for safety's sake, of course. But they're doing sprints up and down the driveway. We're probably listening to their music. But yeah, they know my son is in jujitsu. My wife and I talked about when we decided we're going to have kids, they're going to play a sport and they're going to practice a fight discipline. I was a boxer when I was younger. I can teach my kids how to throw a punch, but I don't care what martial art they choose. They just have to practice a fight discipline. What's most important for me, what I'm going to be watching is the coach. Is the coach is he actually coaching them, or is he like a guy who feels like he missed out on being a world champion in that sport? He's
Right.
trying to be a hard ass. So you know what I mean there. Got some great coaches at the in the jiu-jitsu place we're going to. My daughter isn't there yet, but we do take them to a Kid Strong class, both of them, which if you're not familiar, it's basically like CrossFit for kids. Well structured. They work on building confidence. They work on eye contact and communication. Yeah. So absolutely. The kids are learning. Physical, development is as important, goes right alongside, intellectual development as well. With the school we have them in, one of their principles is to promote ownership of your whole health and well-being. So how effectively you can use your body, how effectively you can use your mind, how effectively you can use your words, all that.
It makes a ton of sense. I unfortunately didn't train in any martial arts growing up. I wish I had, if I could go back and do that, but I was involved in a ton of sports, and that taught me so much. I mean, set the stage for the rest of my life, and being a coach and what I am now. But you learn so many interpersonal skills, how to use your body, how to perform, how to be disciplined, how to time manage, like all of these things. And it's just, you don't learn it by sitting in a classroom and someone teaching it to you. You just learn it by doing it, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't grow up with it, right? I went into the Marine Corps 4 days after graduating high school, right? So 4 days after graduation, shipped to boot camp. And, the way I grew up was more, I mean, I was a bit of a juvenile delinquent, so, that summer I was away at boot camp. I had friends in one of two categories. They were dying or they were going to jail. And I probably would have been there. So I always like throw out the joke of, Marine Corps is the best mistake I ever made. Again, of course it's a joke. I went into infantry, was a machine gunner, got to try out for a special operations group, fast company out of Norfolk, Virginia. In the 2 years I was there, I walked the earth with some of the baddest men on the planet at the time. I'm still in touch with a lot of them. I was hanging out with one of them this past weekend. And, just working to keep up with that crew really brought the best out of me and taught me a lot. Right. And that's when I, going in there is when I first kind of learned the value of understanding fight discipline and understanding violence. And, I think the problem with violence in America today, maybe it's true in Canada as well, is that most people are chronically unfamiliar with it. So, that's what that's what a fight discipline can teach.
I would say it's probably equal here, and then that leads to using weapons versus, like, if you have I think it's the concept of this. It's like, if you know that you are physically capable in a combat situation, you don't feel the need to, like, prove yourself. Like, the guys who know how to fight are not the guys who are out there most of the time, like, looking for fights. It's the guys who, like, just think they're big and trying to prove something to probably themselves, realistically, that they can fight. And then that's when, meaningless street fights happen, right? But if two guys know what they're doing, it's like, hey, we don't need to do this, right?
Have you seen there's a reel going around of, they're in the stands at some game, and this guy is screaming at the other guy, and the one dude pats him on the chest, walks away, like, it's all right, man. I had, a few months ago, I took my son to a park, and he loves RC cars. He's bought him this little RC truck, and he races it around. And we went, and one of his friends were there, and we were driving around, and they were going up these ramps. It's like a skate and bike ramp section, and this 30-year-old man-child comes over, and I'm talking to the other dad, and starts screaming at the kids. Right, my son was it was a year ago. He was like 4 at the time. And so I just, of course, stepped in, hey, the dads are here. You don't talk to the kids. And he's screaming, "I'll kick your fucking ass. You can't be a fine. There's a sign over." Where's the sign? Show me the sign. Right. And we walk over, and he's like, "You need me to read it for you?" All right. Didn't see the sign, man. Hey, we're going to go over here. You need anything else? I'll kick your fucking ass if I see you out again. Cool. You all right? You good? Yeah. And then whatever, man. I mean, if that guy's life is so bad that he finds the need to scream at 4-year-olds, I don't think in the next nothing I can do to him is going to do what life is going to do to him in the coming years. Right. And I know that. So I again, the way I grew up, I've seen that play out, and I was fortunate enough to have some resources that, hey, maybe this is a better choice.
Right. Yeah. And in that scenario, because you're confident in your own abilities, it also makes you not afraid of the situation. Because what if he does swing at you, start to attack you? You know that you could handle yourself if you needed to. You won't incite it.
Especially with somebody who's going to act like that. Yeah, right. He's trying to intimidate.
So it allows you to be calm and rational and like speak in a calm voice to him, because you're not getting scared and excited and starting to freak out, right?
Right. And as the situation was playing out, you could see he understands. It's basic psychology. You know this, right? You can see he's losing confidence because he can see he's not getting the rise out of me he was hoping he did. He had some friends standing around. They were kind of, they start, after 2 minutes, they start to pull him back. Hey, this guy's calm. Maybe you need to back off, right? So everybody kind of gets it, and if, again, let's say I did, decide to engage and further Texas is mutual combat state, so we can call it the cop and let it play out. But then let's say he is capable or lands a lucky punch. What's the benefit of that happening in front of my 4-year-old?
Right.
Right. So I'm confident I can handle whatever happens, but I'm also not going to I want to put my son to bed at night. I don't want to have to spend a few nights or even a night or a couple of hours behind bars. I don't care about, no. What's most important is get home and cool. You want this part of the park? Yours, man. We'll be over here.
Yeah, it's never worth it, and it's just completely silly. And I mean, your son was pretty young, so who knows whether he'll remember that interaction, but it's a story to tell regardless that just contributes to like this whole leading by example. Like, this is how we deal with bullies. This is how we deal with, XYZ, right?
We had a little conversation there, and it was, that's a conversation I had with him. And hey, buddy, sometimes people are angry. Can't let it affect you.
It almost brings back, and I'll kind of swerve us back to the whole like science versus experience thing. Because you've been in those, you couldn't have read enough books or listened to enough podcasts to help you deal with that situation. But you've been in training, combat training and physical training, and in other situations. Now you don't go out and look for these situations, but it's happened to you, so that you had the experience to deal with it. And in the context of fitness and health, you can read all the textbooks that you want, and again, listen to all the podcasts, follow all the people online. Like, if you don't get in the gym and do stuff, you will never find what works, because circling all the way back to the beginning, what's the best exercise? The one that you do, or the one that you're going to like, and the one that you'll actually do. And so you won't find that out. You won't be able to science your way into any type of benefit without just going in there and try some stuff.
Yeah. A few things. I love that you said, I forget how you said it, but the hashtag that, there's 2 hashtags that I own, quote unquote, get strong and do stuff, and get strong and do shit. Like, that's the everyday man's version of strength and conditioning. Yeah. It's get strong and do stuff. It's that fucking simple. And I lost it. I lost what you said something great in there, and I lost it. So
all good. Right. But even on that, go ahead.
You talk about reading all the books. There's this, if you haven't seen the movie Good Will Hunting, there's the scene where Robin Williams and Matt Damon are sitting on the park bench, and he says, like, if we talk art, you can tell me all about Da Vinci, but you have no fucking idea what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel, right? If we're going to talk about war, you can talk about Churchill, but you've never been in a fucking fight. I am very loosely paraphrasing, but it's a great scene of what I think, and it's the first time I've said this in a podcast. This is a concept I'm trying to put out There's this concept that this widespread of intellectual obesity and moral obesity. And people can, because what is obesity but a too much stored up energy? And people can tell you of all the books they read of what is the right thing to do. But when is the last time you ran to a fire to see if you could help? I did that just a few weeks ago. There was a huge fire right up the street at the top of my neighborhood when I was outside watching the kids ride bikes, right? When is the last time? A few years ago when Hurricane Harvey went through Houston. That was that right before my accident, or maybe I went down in my in-laws' neighborhood. They were one of two houses that wasn't completely destroyed. I went down there. I had a week to spare. Found a guy I'd never met before. Helped him like gut his house for a week. It's some of the hardest work I've ever done. I shared that on social media, and people were like, "Hey, where can I donate?" I commented like, "Hey, I don't know I'm not taking donations. I'm here helping a man who needs help. Maybe try donating to the Red Cross." And holy fuck, did people tell me I was an asshole for saying you should donate to the Red Cross. I don't fucking know. Go figure out what the fuck you can do, right? Stop telling me what you think I should do when I'm actually fucking doing something, right? And yeah, it's keyboard warriors, man. And it is the dark side of social media, but it is what it is.
One thing that I've really come to realize, again, in the context of training, and I wish this weren't true, is just that you don't even really have to train that correctly to get good results. Like, there are plenty of guys who are in the gym and you just see them in there and they're like, no, their form is bad. Like, their exercise selection seems weird. Like, you see them in there every day and like there's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing, or maybe they think there is, but like, if you think about it in terms of exercise physiology, like, it's all wrong. They're doing all the stuff like wrong, but they work hard and they're in there every day for like 10 years. And you look at them like, okay, this guy's not a bodybuilder, but like, looks pretty good. He's pretty strong. He looks, he's lean. He's doing the thing. So like, how much of this stuff, like, it matters. Obviously, you'll get better results and faster and with less injury. But the most important thing is that you just get in there with intensity and consistency, and that's going to trump everything else.
Man, that's it. Like, use that sound because the way you said it, you don't even have to train that correctly. Is that what you said, to get results?
Something like that.
It's yeah, man. But the other flip side to that, what you should do, what unfortunately a lot of people are missing, is review it. Right? What are you what are you doing? Who was it that said a life without reviewing is a life? Again, I'm screwing up.
An unexamined life is not a life worth living. I think it's Aristotle.
Thank you.
But it's one of those ancient philosopher dudes. I think it's Aristotle, but either way.
So if you like, I have it in my calendar in the evening to do what I call a daily closeout and just review the day. Do I do it every day? Absolutely not. Do I get it most days? Yep. But it helps you. What did I do today? Well, I did this and I got X result. Well, I wanted more. Well, what can I do to get more result? Right. So and you look to resources, science when it's useful. But what have the people who've been more successful already done? And then just follow that.
The most important part of the fuck around and find out is the actual finding out part. You can't just stop at the fuck around. Like, it'll get you somewhere, but but you could get way farther. And this is where it's like the whole science based versus experience based, and there's the whole, not that we need to talk about internet drama, but the Jeff Nippard thing and whatever. It's like, this doesn't like, we don't need to be in this 0-1 black and white. Like, you can train hard and do the bro stuff that like the guys before us did and all that stuff. And you can use like science to guide that to make a little bit better decisions. Like, there's a middle ground there. You don't have to do either or. Like, you can do both. And like, this is the world of social media just makes it so that everything is black and white, left, right, up, down, whatever. And always the answer is somewhere in the middle.
It's right. And the best answer is usually it depends. But that's fighting in a gym, like, that's not a, boxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu gym where you're actually trying to get better. Fighting anywhere in general, right? The great, Dalton, played by Patrick Swayze. Does anybody ever win a fight? Right? No. Yeah. So, yeah, man, I've got about 5 more minutes before I gotta get rolling here. But man, I can't believe we've actually talk that long. It's been a great conversation, man.
I know, dude. I'm nearing up on 200 episodes in, and like every single time, it's like I set my phone down here and I set the timer just so I can keep track of time. And then I look at it like, in 30 seconds just to make sure that I started it. And then I look at it again and it's like 50 minutes. I'm like, oh, we got to wrap it up. And time flies, but it's good. It's, when we're having good conversations and, giving people good things to think about. So, given all that, enough of me rambling. Anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about just before we close it off here?
Yeah. A couple of things. I'd like to offer your audience the ability to connect with me if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Your contact info. I'll put everything in the show notes, but yeah.
Yeah. So a couple ways to do that. I have my Instagram, which is Coach Brandon Mancini, Mancine. The easier one, I have 2 Instagrams. The easier one to connect is BMF Coach. Brandon Mancini Fitness is BMF Coach is the Instagram handle. My website, if you would like to join my newsletter, bmfcoaching.com. You can also on there signing up for the newsletter, you get a free ebook for the Turkish Get Up. If you'd like to meet up in person, I'm in San Antonio. I am sponsoring, I believe we talked, this episode's coming out just before it. I'm sponsoring the Silverback Summit out in Phoenix, the weekend of the 15th. Silverback, if you look up Allie Gilbert's, Silverback Summit, we'll be in Phoenix the weekend of the 15th. I'm sponsoring that with, my company Hair XT. Sorry. I was trying to bring her
There's
website
Allie.
up there. Yeah, there's Allie. Hair XT, we're sponsoring it. We're the all-natural drug-free alternative to products like Rogaine and Minoxidil. So there, threw a lot of information out there at the end, but
amazing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I think I covered it all.
I'll put it all in the show notes. I knew that BMF was like your initials fitness, but there's like a tiny percentage of me that was hoping you were just going to make it bad motherfucker coaching, like, the BMF belt in the UFC.
Let's
but
do it.
It works. It works. But yeah, Silverback Summit, awesome. I unfortunately won't be there, but everyone who listens to this podcast, if you're a fellow coach or fitness professional, you know how much I've spoken about the conferences that I've been to and how impactful they've been on my own career and networking and for the podcast and for all of these things. So if you're listening to this and you can get to Phoenix this weekend ish when the show is coming out, get to it.
Yeah. Let me do one more thing. So if you want to go, Ali G200 will give you $200 off enrollment to that. Ali G ALIG 200. That's why I brought up the website. I wanted to make sure I offered that. And I'll tell you what, if anybody wants to try Hair XT, do you mind if I give your audience a discount code for that?
Not at all.
HXT20, all caps, HXT20 will give your audience 20% off their first order for that as well.
If you want to have luscious hair and not be bald like me, you can get some Hair XT.
I've been using it since 2015. My before and afters are on our Instagram, which I'm not very active on our Instagram. I need to do better there. But yeah, I can personally attest that it works.
I believe it, man. I believe it. Well, thank you very much for all that. I know we got to go, so we'll wrap that up. I'll put all those links and everything in the show notes. I'll get you to send them to me after, Brandon. But any last words you want to leave a message with as we
Man, I want to do this again. I really enjoy doing podcast interviews. I think you're probably one of the better interviews I've been on. You ask great questions, man, and we had great conversation. So yeah, I think a couple weeks, couple months, let's get together and do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. That means a ton for me, to me. So thank you very much for that. But yes, we definitely will do it again at some point in the not too distant future. Brandon Mancine, everybody. Appreciate you all for listening. You'll find all Brandon's contact info, links, discount codes, everything like that in the show notes. That's it. Go train, get strong, do shit, be hard to kill, all those good things. Go outside, be a good person. See you next time.